Cryptocurrency and many other Web3 utilities nowadays are based upon one of the most important inventions of the recent years: blockchain. Behind all these noisy layers of new projects, speculation, and other interesting ideas that you can find in the space, the technology evolves into new directions every single year, transforming the crypto industry more and more into a big experimental playground for blockchain technology. Developers from all around the world try to come up with new ways of making blockchain technology more scalable, more secure, and in some cases even valorize the traditionally intended decentralization. In today's video, we want to take a look at a very famous dilemma known as the Blockchain Dilemma that we have to solve in order to bring this technology to the next level. If we don't manage to improve the technology, and we are at a very critical point in history right now, the ultimate goal of mainstream adoption might never be achieved. To get first-hand information, I spoke to an industry expert about the current developments, and I hope I can give you a better understanding of the big problems developers are currently facing. While you might think it is a topic for nerds and software developers, I can assure you that the interesting dilemma we are going to explore today will be easy to understand, and how we handle it will have a huge impact on the future of the Web3 space. Therefore, you should definitely know about it. So let's go! The dilemma is pretty easy. With the current state of blockchain, when building a blockchain, you can only pick two of these three characteristics without neglecting the other aspects: scalability, security, and decentralization. Currently going for all three is not really possible, as one of the other two will definitely suffer. If you want to build something that is extremely scalable and secure, the blockchain will not be as decentralized. On the other hand, a decentralized and secure blockchain like Bitcoin has enormous scalability problems. Scalability is a heavily discussed topic as of now. With only 15 transactions per second that the Ethereum network can process right now, we are still far away from the millions of transactions per second that a normal Visa card can process. Even networks like Solana, which are currently operating the fastest in the space, can only reach about 3,000 transactions per second. Even though Visa cards and blockchains are not comparable on a detailed level, developers still need to improve the scalability of blockchains a lot if they want to get it adopted by the mainstream. I spoke with Chris, who is the CEO of a blockchain node company called Blockjoy, and we just discussed a few topics regarding the blockchain dilemma. And let's see what he has to say about that topic. Alright, so I have Chris Bruce with me here today. You are the founder of Blockjoy, which is a blockchain node company. Can you maybe quickly introduce yourself?
Sure, yes. Like you said, I'm Chris Bruce. I'm the founder and CEO of Blockjoy. Blockjoy is a Web3 infrastructure company. And what that means is we allow companies and businesses to run blockchain nodes at scale on bare metal without having to run them in the cloud and in a much more decentralized manner.
So what is scaling as it relates to blockchains, and why is it important?
Sure. So if you look at the financial industry today, there's a lot of things that don't require much scaling. But if you look at some of the more important things, like let's say credit card transactions, those are taking somewhere around 60,000 transactions per second. That's pretty fast, and centralized computers are really good at scaling those and making sure that a debit is properly allocated to a credit and there's no double spending. Blockchains are also good at preventing a double spend and validating transactions, but the problem today is because they are decentralized, they take a group of machines, many times thousands of machines, to agree on a transaction and come to consensus. They typically can process less transactions per second than some of the centralized systems that we have today. And so if you look at maybe Ethereum, Bitcoin, and some of these other ones, they are processing maybe 20, 30 transactions a second. And that's why the transaction fees are very high, because it takes a lot of extra money to put your transaction at the front of the pack. There's a lot of things that are being done to try and mitigate this. But if you look at something like Solana, which is probably one of the fastest blockchains out there today, it is processing somewhere around 20,000 requests or transactions per second. And so because of that, blockchains aren't well suited yet for the types of scaling that the overall financial industry would require in order to completely use, Bitcoin or any other form of Ethereum or token, in place of, say, credit cards.
So what are the potential ways that blockchain could scale?
Sure. So I think architecturally, there's a few schools of thought here. So one is what we call vertical scaling. Let's get bigger machines with more CPUs, more powerful CPUs, and let's keep one blockchain that runs on these machines. So it's kind of like the Solana approach. Their take is that the cost of CPU and power is coming down and the power is going up. It's kind of like Moore's law, if you will. And so they like this idea of keeping a single chain. Then you have something that is more along the lines of Cosmos, Near, and some of these other ones where they're more of an app chain type model. So they basically shard the chain. And what I mean by that is they actually have several chains that are running that interact with each other, but that a transaction comes in, it gets routed to the correct chain. And so what we're doing is we're running several different chains or different blockchains, if you will, and they can all sync and correlate together. But transactions could come and be distributed and kind of, across that, evenly distribute the load across those. And so you can, many times if you're doing something in parallel, you can get more transaction throughput. And then we have something that is kind of what we're seeing a lot in Ethereum right now, which is what we're calling L2 rollups. And they basically are another chain that basically takes transactions. They're usually lower cost because they're dedicated to a smaller group of applications. And then what they do is periodically they batch the net result. So they might do 5,000 transactions, take the net result and write it into Ethereum. So there's fewer transactions happening in Ethereum, but they're kind of being batched and grouped together, and the net effect is being written into Ethereum. So those are kind of the landscapes that you see today.
What do you think about app chains?
I mean, it's something I'm very interested in. So if you look at the history of computer science, what we have learned is that vertical scaling oftentimes does not work. And what you want to do is scale out or go to horizontal scaling. And I think one of the nice things and maybe good ways to do that within the blockchain ecosystem is something they call app chains. And so most of those are built on a common ecosystem like Cosmos, where they have inter-blockchain communication or IBC. So they have a way for those different blockchains built in that ecosystem to talk to each other, to transfer and swap tokens with each other. And so what this allows you to do is to build Tom's token. And so you can spin up your own chain essentially with only your transactions specific to your applications running inside of it. And so usually it's very fast because it doesn't have a lot of noise. You're not recording NFTs from 20 other different projects. You're not settling different things that don't relate to your specific application. The downside is that now you have to have your own set of validators. You also have to work with some of these other chains to make sure that they want to integrate and open up the IBC or inter blockchain communications. And so so there are some caveats, but I really like the app chain model because I think it lets people build and maybe even to some degree customize the chain to fit their needs.
Do you think decentralization is valued enough today, especially with all the new projects just popping up in the space?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of projects with various things. So I think in the L2 rollup space for Ethereum, we have Optimism, so we have a pretty open system there. But we also have Polygon has a huge business on top of it, and so yeah, it's a little concerning because we see some of these chains, even Solana to some degree, kind of being a walled garden and sort of kind of being in control by the foundations and things like that. And so, yeah, it can be a little bit concerning that, maybe there are some centralized sources coming into play here. But then we have other things like Near and eGeld that are basically, starting to roll out new governance so that the whole entire governance of the chain is done on chain and with tokens. And so, yeah, I think we're still in the early days. I think we're going to start to see that being important to some people, but then again, you think about businesses, and kind of like if you look historically, we see things get centralized. I mean, social media got centralized, and now basically web-based emails all centralized on Gmail. Like we just see those services that used to be open continue to be centralized, and what I'm afraid of is that at the cost of decentralization, we're opting for ease of use in many of these cases. And so the experience and just being able to like have a turnkey solution or have a company that will give you support if you're a big brand that's going to build NFTs or whatever for blockchain. And so I'm just really afraid that we're going to see a lot more centralization kind of creep in. But that being said, I think, Bitcoin, Ethereum, like their roots are so foundational in decentralization that I don't think that those protocols will really go that way. But we see new protocols that come out that meet needs. And I think, the transactions and scalability are always an important factor. And the cost of those transactions are an important factor. And so that may drive some people to go to a more centralized solution. But even today, they're still far less centralized than the services and utilities that we commonly use today. The beauty of a lot of these, even on Polygon, is I can run a Polygon validator, I can run Polygon nodes, like I can actually participate in the network with almost no permission from the foundation. And so those are, I think, some really good aspects to that. So we'll have to wait and see how this all shakes out.
The last constraint we really want to take a look at is security. And I know it's kind of a hard one because it has various aspects in all of them. It has various aspects in decentralization and also in scalability, and they all are dependent on each other. What's your take on security? How can we make sure that everything stays secure?
Yeah, so first of all, I'd like to say, not your keys, not your crypto. It's so important to get this through your head. Okay.
We should say that together.
Yeah. So, right. So, I think security is a tough one because security touches so many elements. So even the open source code needs to be scrutinized for security bugs and things like that. And we still see stuff happen, especially with the connection between different blockchains and some of these swap networks. Then we have security that we have to worry about coming from centralized services. So, companies that have special keys that control a smart contract that's maybe in a private company and not open to, a governance or a foundation. The more centralized these services are, the more opportunity if somebody has a keys to that smart contract can, hijack the network or take your tokens and things like that. So it's really, really catch 22 right now because, some of these chains are relying on third-party companies to help them scale. And some of those third-party companies have keys to their blockchain, and they're able to write to Ethereum on behalf of their customers. And if their users, have to put a lot of trust in some of them, and so it's kind of an issue. And some people maybe don't even think about it, but it really is not your keys, not your crypto. It's kind of a scary thought.
So what you're saying is the more decentralized it is, the more secure it is?
Not always. So the one thing that we gotta, spin the lens on is really the fact that being decentralized, yes, it makes things, I think, more secure. But unlike what we are accustomed to today, is that if you have a problem, say like you miswrote a program or a smart contract and it started to do something, because of the decentralized nature, you can't roll that back. You can't just get that money back. You can't fix the problem. And even in the early days of Ethereum, this happened, where they actually forked the chain and, created, a bit of a mess. Bitcoin also had some things in its decentralized nature. And so the problem really is that our whole paradigms of how we get password reminders, how we can have somebody delete our account or have somebody, help us fix an issue, are all gone in this. And until those things are built as part of the protocol, maybe some recovery and stuff, you don't have those options. So if you make a mistake, code is law, as they say. And if your code is law, but that code is a mistake that allows people to steal or drain tokens out of that smart contract, there's nothing you can do. And that's, in our centralized systems, you have some sort of controls. Like if somebody goes and steals my credit card and runs, $100,000 worth of transactions, the credit card company will oftentimes, cancel those transactions and I won't have to pay a thing. They'll protect the consumer. But if somebody wrote a bad smart contract and drained all my tokens out, there's nothing I can do. I don't get that money back. So in some ways, it is more secure because I know there's no middleman or intermediary that's, capitalizing or taking my data or things like this. But the flip side is if somebody does something wrong, then I could be, left out in the cold without my tokens.
I think people are ready for the responsibility they have to take.
I think the hard part now is that all of those smart contracts, all of the code for the blockchains are open source, so you can look at them. But who is a consensus protocol engineer? Who is, who is a P2P library expert? So who is really going to validate? Who are we going to trust that these things are secure and believe when they say, hey, we've done an audit on it that's secure? And so that's the hard part, because even though it's open source and you could read the source code and you do this, you can't guarantee that it's done right, because maybe you don't have the expertise to validate it yourself. And so it's a whole completely new set of technology. It's a completely new paradigm. It has so many tremendous benefits. Just imagine being able to send money from here to anybody in the world for essentially cents. Like you could literally send $1 million in Bitcoin for maybe $1 or $2. But if I want to go send my aunt $15 in the States, like that's going to cost me $15 just to send that $15. And so it's really unfortunate that intermediaries have really profited and to some degree exploited our need for these key services, banks and financial institutions.
Thank you very much for watching this YouTube video. I hope you enjoyed it. You actually made it to the end, so please press the subscribe button if you like this channel and the content we are doing. We will try to cover everything Web3 related, and hopefully we have some documentaries coming soon. So smash the subscribe button and write every single question you have in the comments. My name is Tom from WGF Web3. See you next time.